What if USC is tough as they're going to be, as physical as they're going to be? And also on this episode of Locked on USC, those Trojan midterm report cards. After the Notre Dame game, I think they need to be more closely scrutinized. All that's coming up next on this episode of Locked on USC.
You are Locked on USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thanks again for making Locked on USC part of the Locked on Network your first team, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download this podcast, you can pick your platform. This show is there. This show will be free, and this show will always appreciate your support. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So last week, before the Trojans took off for South Bend, I asked Coach Riley a question. I asked him a question about toughness. I wanted his opinion. I need to know whether or not toughness and being physical can be taught, or is it just mostly inherited and passed down through bloodlines? In other words, you either have it or you don't. So this is what he said. Quote, I think it's a balance. I think you can do things on a day-to-day basis that can promote it, but like anything, it's much easier when you bring guys in that already show signs of that. It just makes that process go a lot smoother, as opposed to having to change people instead of you're just trying to enhance people. He continued. So yeah, you can develop it like any other skill, but like any other skill, if somebody is already naturally good at it, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to develop or get the desired result a little bit faster, end quote. I like that answer, especially the part about doing things on a day-to-day basis and if you're naturally good at it. All that makes sense. I kind of anticipated that part of it. So I suppose maybe the follow-up question, or maybe I should have just went straight at it and just, cut to the chase. I wonder if I should have asked Coach Riley, where do you fall? Personally, where does Coach Riley fall on the spectrum of being naturally good at it, being tough, physical? I'm not saying that Lincoln isn't tough or he's afraid. That's not what I'm implying. However, what I am asking is, can he develop a tough mentality being an offensive guy? Somebody who comes from the Mike Leach air raid tree. A lot of passing. And the reason I'm asking is because a team's culture starts at the top. We know that. Starts with the head guy. So keeping all that in mind, he assembles his staff and he implements, what he wants. It's his vision. It's the way he wants his program run. Buck stops at the top. Here's something else we know. Coach Riley wants to run the ball. I mean, in order for his offense to work, it needs to be balanced. When his offense was putting up big points and, a lot of yards at Oklahoma, the run game was kicking butt. Guess what? Same thing at USC. He's got an eye for talent, especially, one of the things you can say he's done incredibly well when it comes to the transfer portal. There has not been a miss at the running back position. Every single guy they brought in has met the job, has met the challenge, has done the job. So we know that Lincoln Riley likes to run the ball, but we know it needs to be balanced. So I guess, what about on defense? Why is it so slow to get the culture of being consistently physical and being able to match up against Michigan one week and Notre Dame the next week? Why is it so inconsistent? Why is that toughness, that physicality on the defensive side of the ball so much more inconsistent compared to the offensive side of the ball? I'm wondering that. Look, I'm old enough to remember when those USC players would say, hey, you know what? Practice is a lot tougher than the games we play. That was said a lot, frequently, during the Pete Carroll era. I don't hear those words around Howard Jones Field anymore. That's USC's practice facility. And again, I'm not intimating that Lincoln Riley's practices are soft. I mean, the ones the media has been allowed to watch, I get it, it's been a small sample size. They've been fast-paced, they've been physical. But remember, there's always going to be that fine line between going 100% in a game and 100% during practice with that physicality. It's an intensity type of thing, and you want to protect your own guys during practice. So you got to know when to ease up, when to let up, not to go, Ray Mealuga. Can't do that. Yeah, I don't want to harp too much on the past, but Ray, if we're being honest, he was the guy who ruined the former number one wide receiver in the country coming out of high school, Patrick Turner. I'm still not sure why he did him like that in practice that one day, but Ray did everyone like that, including, the broom quarterbacks. But you get my point. You want to hurt the opponent, not your own guys. And I'm not asking for USC to take it to Ray levels during practice. Nevertheless, I'm wondering, because of the way practices are run, the type of offense that Coach Riley likes to use, is it developing? Is it teaching that toughness? He brought up, doing things on a day-to-day basis. This is one of those things where I say, let us watch more practice so we can see how you're developing that toughness on a day-to-day basis. I mean, certain play calling in certain situations, that sends a message not only to the opponent, however, to your own team as well. Here's a perfect example of what I'm trying to illustrate. So in the game against Notre Dame, USC was facing a 4th and 1. And instead of lining up the quarterback under center, and then, say, hey, you know what, George, you're my fattest dude on the roster. I know you're athletic. I watched you run back an interception for a thick 6. I want you to get in that fullback position. I'm going to line up 2 tight ends. No, instead they called that, rollout pass to Lake McCree, and it fell incomplete. I mean, why not try and recreate a little history in what might be the last game in this storied history? Why not use your 6'4", 225-pound quarterback, Jaden Mayaba? You got 350 pounds lined up behind him. You got 2 tight ends. Push him in the back and go gain that less than a yard. That develops and teaches toughness, physicality, sends a message to the other team as well as to your team. Look, if that type of simple-minded football can't pick up less than a yard, especially with Notre Dame's best interior lineman out for the game, then I have no idea what does it. What I know is that it's physical and it breeds toughness. All right, so I agree, I think, with the premise that yes, you can teach guys how to be tough, how to develop physicality. And yes, it's much easier when you're bringing in guys who already have that type of, mental makeup, so to speak. I don't know if they're doing it the right way, or if what they're teaching is resonating. Sometimes you got to look at the student and say, hey, do you understand what I'm trying to say? And the coaches have to be able to recognize that. So again, Coach Riley, he explained it well. I think everyone just wants to see it on a more consistent basis, right? All right, I've got the team's real midterm grades after that Notre Dame test. That's coming up next. I told you on last week's episode, after the Michigan report card came out, and it's like, remember how guys used to change their grades? I'm wondering. All right, coming up next, I'm going to tell you about my grades for the USC versus Notre Dame game. Most people, like myself, can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. When you don't have the full picture, you're probably going to end up leaving a lot of money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean and easy to use interface. You can do this on your laptop. You can even do it on your phone. Monarch does all the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you will finally feel free and in total control of your money without ever even having to touch a spreadsheet. There's a really cool feature I like about Monarch Money. When I linked my accounts, it immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. It canceled those right away, and that saved me money every month. I'm telling you, don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser, and you're going to get half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com when you use code LOCKEDONCollege. FanDuel is also a sponsor of this episode, and the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers, if you can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, guess what? You're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire FanDuel app. You're going to love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. You like doing the player prop bets? No problem. Building a same-game parlay? FanDuel is your place to be. Maybe you just want to jump into the action live as it unfolds. FanDuel.com. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, so I'm going to just get right to it. I got the grades for USC's performance against Notre Dame. This is not a good report card. Not at all. And I made sure that there was no way that anybody can fudge their grades. Made sure. So I'm going to start with a quarterback. I gave Jaden Mayava a C. Last week, B+. So a little bit of a drop-off. This was, I think everyone would agree, and even Jaden said it after the game. He played, I can't use the actual word, but it rhymes with gritty, but it smells like poop. So, yeah, that's how he described his play. And it was, if you're comparing it to his other games this season, by far his worst. He still put up 328 yards passing the ball, threw 2 touchdowns, had some really cool throws, but he also had 2 interceptions. That first one, momentum killer. Could not happen at the worst time. And look, if he's going to be considered a dual threat quarterback, I think he needs to play like one when the situation calls for it. Did not see enough of that. Whether that's by design or not, I don't care. I watched what he did at UNLV his first year in college. Last year, allegedly, he was hurt. That's why they didn't do it. This year, we saw it early in the year. We're not seeing enough. That throws opposing defenses off, keeps them off balance. You need to see more of that. Running back, I'm giving him a C. Last week, they were an A+. And I get it. You're missing Waymon Jordan. We're missing Eli Sanders. Still, they're just average. Nothing special. You still had King Miller. You had Brian Jackson back. I don't know if he's 100% healthy. Nevertheless, you had 2 solid running backs. Now, a lot of, running backs are only going to be as good as the offensive line in front of them. So I tried to factor that into it. Still, I'm just giving him a C. You need more than 92 yards rushing. You need more than 92. You really do. Offensive line, C-. Last week, A+. The Notre Dame defensive line, their front 7, whatever you want to call it, they were consistently in USC's backfield. And that during the run game, I think USC was okay. They weren't as good as they were against Michigan. The passing, their pass protection, 16 pressures. It's too many. And what's so ironic is most of USC's run game success actually came up the middle between the tackles. And it should have happened that way. I mean, Notre Dame was missing their best interior lineman, but I really thought USC would be able to do a little bit better I don't know if they were going to be as good as they were against Michigan, but when you're traveling on the road, you got to be able to lean in that run game. Hopefully, they'll be able to bounce back in a couple weeks when they travel to Nebraska. Wide receiver, gave him a C last week, an A. Jacoby Lane had that really cool touchdown. Also dropped a few passes. Can't have that happen. Like Mekhi Lemon, he had a couple of nice plays when Christian Gray was defending him. But he was kind of just meh, okay, when Leonard Moore was in charge of covering him. Leonard Moore is a really good cornerback, so it's not a knock against Mekhi, but still, he only had a couple of catches, and then that trick play decision of his. Not he didn't call the play. His decision on how to execute the play was very un-Mekhi-like. And then Tanu Kynes, he had his best game of his college career so far. Still not sure why they targeted him so much. Nevertheless, he had a good game. But wide receiver as a group, C. Tight end, I gave him a B- last week. They were a B+, not a significant drop off, but Lake McCree had that touchdown grab, and that set things up for USC. Excuse me. Walker Lyons had a pretty decent game. I just don't think they were used enough, especially over the middle. Again, that's play calling. That's not really on them. Maybe they could have been a little stronger with run blocking. I'm not going to dive on, dig into these guys too hard because the tight end group, Walker, Lake, they've been solid all year. As far as offensive play calling, this is Lincoln Riley's forte. I gave him a C-. You forego that you did not go for the field goal when you had the chance early in the game. Those 2 4th down calls were not good, especially the one with McCree on 4th and short. That stupid play call with Mekhi. Let me just say this was not Coach Riley's best game. Fair? I think that's fair. And some good calls. Just overall, I've seen better play calling from Coach Riley. Other side of the ball, defensive front 7 last week. An A and B+ respectively. We're talking about the D line and linebackers. This week, F. I mean, someone forged their grades. Wasn't me. I will look. Those are the grades I gave out last week. I'm surprised of how poorly they retained what they were taught because they didn't show up in South Bend against Notre Dame. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I use the F word, the word that starts with starts with the letter F, and it had nothing to do with being fluid. What I saw happening up front was not good. No bueno. By the way, make sure you check out Inside the Trojan Huddle this week with me, Eric McKinney, Greg Katz, Chris Arledge is hosting it. We broke down the defense. We broke down the defensive breakdown, especially on Jermaine Love's big run early in the game. Got slow motion, everything. I mean, Notre Dame's offensive line tackling Jade Abasiri, putting that aside, that played a role in his big run. There were still so many things that went wrong on that play, from USC's defensive edges to the linebacker play. Heck, even Bishop Fitzgerald, who was playing deep safety, he read the whole thing wrong. It was just gross. That entire play was gross. Yes, there was a hold, a big hold, a major hold. But there was you still had other guys that could have, had they done their job, had they read the gap, had they done what they were supposed to do better, Love doesn't go for 64 yards or whatever that run was. Defensive backs, they actually got the best grade. I'm giving them a B. Last week, they had an A-. I mean, it's ironic considering, they've been picked on the most. But just like, Jade Mayaba didn't have his best game, guess what? CJ Carr, Notre Dame's quarterback, by far, worst game of the season. Worst game than he had against Miami, worst game than he had against Texas A&M. I mean, let me just put this in perspective. Notre Dame's longest pass play went for 15 yards. And he had a lot of incompletions that were caused by USC's defensive backs being in position, making a play. And here's something else. Notre Dame did not convert any third downs via the pass. That's outstanding. That's a good job. And don't, like I said, I mentioned Bishop's poor run support read earlier. That can't happen. That really brought the grade down. And I get it, Kamari Ramsey. We're not calling his name a lot, but I wonder why. I'm trying to figure out, why he's not having as strong of a season, I think, as everybody anticipated. Special teams gets 2 grades. You get the guys who kick the ball, Ryan Sierre and Sam Johnson, A. I mean, Ryan, he kicked all 3 of his field goals. He probably would have made 4 had he had another opportunity. Every one of his kickoffs went in the end zone. You can't fault him for Jadarian Price returning the ball 2 yards deep for a kickoff return touchdown. It's not his fault. Sam Johnson, that first punt flipped the field, was it 59 yards? The other one, 40 plus, close to 50. Look, I have no issues with USC's Ray Guy award winner replacement. Sam's done a great job. And Ryan, he has really, if he has not earned the starting kicker's position going forward, we need to do an investigation. No offense to Caden Chittenden. In fact, at this point, red shirt. Just take the year off. Maintain that year of eligibility. Because you're not, unless Ryan gets hurt and you're healthy, you're not kicking this year. Just the way it is. Rest of the special teams, I'm being generous. I'm giving you guys a D. The return game was non-existent on USC's part. The kickoff return team, they did great early in the game. On a short kick, they stopped the return short, but that kickoff return for a touchdown was one of those times I used the F word. I guarantee you that. Was there holding, tackling by the Irish on that return? Yes. But that happened after Tamir Robinson whiffed on the tackle. The worst part, it happened right after USC took the lead in the second half. We're talking about a momentum changer. A punch to the gut, a kick to the groin. Cannot happen. As far as defense and special teams coaching, last week, an A. This week, that F appeared. And look, you cannot turn that thing into an A. I know you can try, but I made sure my F went long line, another long line. Yeah, there's no A in there anywhere. So, look, USC, they had a chance to exploit Notre Dame up the middle. The Fighter Irish had a new guy playing center. I saw no adjustments. I saw no stunts. I saw no twists, no blitzes. Nothing that made that young man who was playing center against USC for the first time made him brown his pants. Nothing. I also want to know, why was USC playing too high safety look all the time instead of, forcing CJ Carr to want to throw the ball? USC needed more run support. Why didn't you have more guys in the box? All right, one more segment to go. And I have a few what-if scenarios to go over. Game time. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. I hope you guys are too, because the season we're over the halfway point. So stay excited, folks. I get it. We're disappointed about the loss. Hang in there. Make sure you're getting your tickets to USC games, because you got the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's nothing like it. But let's be real. Getting tickets to a game can sometimes be more of a battle than the game itself. With the endless queues, you got those hidden fees, you got the price jumping at the end. All that stuff sucks. That's why I recommend you use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. There's no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And as you know, before you check out, you can actually see your view from your seat. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. Last minute tickets. That's how you do it. The app made it super simple. As I mentioned, you can see your view from your seat before you check out. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, let's play a little what if game. Something I write about over at wearesc.com every Monday, my Monday morass. I figured let me share it for some of those people who do not subscribe to that website. I encourage you all to do it. You're missing a lot of really good content, not just from me, especially from Chris Arledge, especially from Eric McKinney. You want recruiting information? Scott Schrader is your dude at wearesc.com. So go check it out. But here are a couple of things I wrote about in my weekly Monday morass article. What if the play call involving Mekhi Lemon opened a new door? Okay. When Coach Riley was asked about that play call after the game, he succinctly said it was a stupid call. Now, look, maybe Coach Riley was covering for his star player because of the way the play executed on the field. And if he was, I think that's great. I have zero issues with that. On the other side of the coin, two things can be true at the same time. It was a stupid play call. He put Mekhi Lemon in a bad situation. Now, for a few years, I've been on the Lincoln Riley, he needs to hire an offensive coordinator to call plays during the games. If he wants to go from a good head coach to a great head coach, he needs to delegate. I backed off that a little bit this season because for the most part, I think the play calling has matched the situation. He's been really good at calling plays this year. However, when things get into crunch time and those high pressure situations are facing Coach Riley, I think sometimes he presses his luck and he gets exposed for his situational football prowess. He needs to get better. So, like I said, what if? What if that stupid play sticks with him during the offseason and he actually considers bringing in someone who can call plays, or at the very least, buzz down to his headset and say, hey, coach, let's consider this play call instead in this situation. Let's save the cute stuff for when our team is in the lead. You're trying to step on their neck. You're trying to put them away, kill them. That's when you get cute. I thought he got a little cute using Mekhi Lemon in that situation. It was a momentum killer. So what if, again, I'm looking what if into the way down future after the season, but I figured this was a perfect time to ask that question. Here was something else I asked. What if USC celebrated the 20-year anniversary of the Bush Push on that 4th down and less than a yard to make? Excuse me. Look, if I need to set up the Bush Push from 20 years ago for you, or anybody watching this episode, I say, welcome to college football. Welcome to Locked On USC. And YouTube is your friend. Go look it up. By the way, if you are watching on YouTube and you are not an everydayer, you're not a subscriber, do it right now. Click that red subscribe button, smash that thumbs up, and click that bell notification button so you don't miss another episode. All that aside. 20 years ago, the Bush Push, we know what happened. 99% of college football fans know what happened. This time, though, 20 years later, USC needed to keep the ball. They needed to keep the ball to keep the drive alive while they were still inside their own territory, although they were near midfield. It was 4th quarter. They were trailing by 10 points. USC was facing a 4th and 1, okay? So instead of lining up your quarterback under center and putting the biggest, fattest dude on the roster who can run interceptions back for a touchdown, having him line up in the backfield behind Jaden Mayava. I mean, why not try and recreate a little bit of that Bush Push vibe? 20 years later, it was the perfect time, right? I mean, you've got 6'4", 225-pound quarterback, Matt Leinart size. You got 2 tight ends. You bring in Jaw Jarrett, and you push Jaden past the yardsticks. It's legal. I'll say it again. If that simple-minded physical style of football cannot pick up less than a yard with Notre Dame's best interior lineman out, then I have no idea what does it. Really, I don't. That was a perfect opportunity to teach that toughness. I got a couple more what-if scenarios. I need to go check out wearesc.com to read the rest. Can't give away everything for free. But I do want to encourage you, hey, when you're done making Locked On USC your first watch, your first listen every day, don't forget to check out Locked On Big Ten. Yeah, Craig Sheeman. He breaks down the exciting, everything that's going on exciting in the conference, college sports, the rivalries, championships, all that stuff. So you can find the Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Go check out Craig Sheeman and the Locked On Big Ten show. You'll enjoy it. Maybe he'll solicit some sort of response from you too. He's been known. All right, that's it for this episode of Locked On USC. I'll be back again tomorrow with another one. That's what we do, 5 times a week. Actually, you get me more than 5 times a week. So until that next episode, everyone, you know what to do. Not bad. We do this. See you on that next episode tomorrow.